crazy. Look, the Texans were at full strength, allegedly, then, at least at quarterback, because Matt Schaub was still in there. Now they're down to their third stringer in rookie T.J. Yates, who has managed to play pretty well, considering. Ravens or Texans? Who we have?
I'm going with the Ravens, and we all know their makeup. Their makeup is defense. That's what runs that team. That's the catalyst of that team for me. And then you look at this defense going up against a young quarterback like T.J. Yates, a quarterback that I think has a lot of Brett Favre in him, a guy that has a strong arm, and he'll try to squeeze that ball in him. I've seen him try to make a couple of throws this year. Very strong arm, seems to be an intelligent guy, but I'm looking at him going up against this Ravens defense. I think that for the most part, I think Nada, Terrell Suggs, Corey Redding, Terrence Cody, I think those guys can handle that front line, handle Houston's offensive line, therefore eliminating Arian Foster and Ben Tate, limiting these guys to maybe, I think they could keep them under 3 digits, meaning under 100 yards rushing. I think they have a good enough group, and of course with Ray Lewis on the back end and Ed Reed. My thing is, if they don't get it done this year, the pressure has to be on them to get it done this year, because I see that window, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I see it closing.
Right. Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah, and they have to get there. And these guys, they've been getting in the playoffs. What, Flacco has 3 postseason wins.
Four and 3
for a young guy in 3 years.
And it's amazing.
That's great for a young guy, but it's predicated on getting to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. And I think, they'll beat the Texans. I just have question marks going forward about Joe Flacco.
Close game? You see this one fairly close?
I see, because the Texans have a very good defense. They have a real good defense. In some categories, they're better than Baltimore in different defensive categories. So, I can see it being a tough game. But, again, the youth at quarterback for the Texans, I think is going to do them in this game.
I'm going to take all your arguments and use them against you. Okay? And you mentioned that. You're right. I do think that there's definitely a psychological pressure that Baltimore has, because they see that window closing. We don't know how much longer Ed Reed or Ray Lewis can play. And I think for that precise reason, they may be a little too overamped. And it was interesting to me that Joe Flacco chose this week to make those comments about how he feels a little bit disrespected. And that lets me know that Joe Flacco may actually try to go out here and win the game on his own arm, which, if I'm the Texans, I love that. And I think the Texans do have a lot of elements. They're sort of a weird version of the Ravens, but they're a lot younger. I think their defense has been lights out. I think there's been a resiliency about this team throughout this whole season, losing so many players to injuries, Mario Williams and Andre Johnson for most of the season, both their quarterbacks. I think right now they know how to win in a very efficient, kind of marginalized way. And I think they're not going to put the game in TD Yates' hands, because they realize that they have Arian Foster, Ben Tate, and they have Andre Johnson. So I think they're going to manage the game for him so he doesn't get the Brett Favre mojo going. I like the Texans. I like them by a very short margin, like a 2-point game.
Right.
This is going to be close. It's going to be a lot of egos and pride on the line. I know how the Ravens are going to come to this game, but I like the Texans because I think they feel like they have something to prove too.
They may wish they had T.D. Jakes at quarterback.
I know, to pray for him. I said this yesterday. If they win this game, I'm going to be forced to get his name right.
It could be that Tebow factor, right? You know, I'm having a rough day over here because you almost talked me into that. I liked everything you said, and I tried last night to talk myself into Texans. I just want to see Tebow.
You want the Ravens and Broncos too bad to root against.
Two underdogs.
And you almost talked me into Tebow in our first segment.
Well, you
because I was trying to talk myself into it.
You talked me into it.
I'm going to stick with Lomas on this one. My score is almost the EA Sports score.
Yeah.
I got 2017. They said 1916.
1 point off on each score.
I do love me some Texans, much more than I love me some Cowboys at this point, because I've said several times, this team all year showed me a backbone and a resilience and some guts and some heart that the team to the north in Texas never showed.
She tried talking you into that in San Antonio. Remember?
I did. I told you they were the best game in the state.
You did. That's a great point.
She was on them a long time ago.
Of course, that was my first day when I said Tebow will win the AFC West, and you guys are going like, yeah, right.
You got that one right. We'll give you that.
Yeah, you got
well, I should have listened.
It's a split decision.
Okay, here's why I do love the Texans also. X's and O's. you're right. This defense is just a notch below Baltimore's, and it's coming and it's close. And the Texans' offensive line, I think it's the best in football. Seriously. So it's gonna be a real collision course here. Okay, I just can't with what's his name? TJ Yates, right? TJ Yates at quarterback. I love him. I loved him at Carolina. I used to rave about him on our ESPNU show.
Right.
But not in this game. I just can't get there. He can handle it to Arian, but you know, it's just not enough. And I agree with your Flacco thing. I'm seeing a little Westbrook Durant going on there, where you got a quarterback versus Ray Rice, he's averaging.
They've done it in games this season where they have gone completely away from Ray Rice.
But the last, 7 games, Ray Rice averaged 115 a game, so they finally said, okay, this is how we win football.
And that scares me because you heard Joe Flacco say, if I want to be an elite quarterback, I need to throw it 50 or 60 times. That, to me, that's not being.
And they lost when they tried to do that in Jacksonville and other places.
It's not their formula.
Yeah, it's not.
The one thing that does worry me is what Yates has proven. He doesn't handle pressure well. And clearly Baltimore, they're very good at putting pressure on quarterbacks. So that to me is the one question mark. But again, I come back to what this team has already been through. I think they're playing with the belief that not a lot of teams left in the tournament.
Yeah, I agree. And you make a strong, solid case.
If the heat on Flacco is already on high, it's off the charts if he loses to a rookie third-string quarterback in TJ Yates. All right, Lomas, thanks. We'll see you in the next hour. We're hitting a break. When we come back, I can't wait for this topic. About 15 years ago, Tiger Mania swept through the nation. Remember that? It was something to see. Now we're in the throes of Tebow Mania. Which craze is crazier? We'll do that a little later on. Stay with us.
So everybody go.